TNT Open Mind Insights brings you powerful, authentic conversations, illuminating the path to better mental health care for all.
Good afternoon,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Steve Delisi. I am
Yes.
so excited to be speaking with you on camera.
Yes.
We've had the pleasure of speaking before, just
We
over
have.
dinner and just in
Yes.
our interactions together. And I'm really excited to just further that conversation in a way where other people can benefit from what I've been hearing from you because
Oh,
you're just a wealth of knowledge and you express your ideas in such a moving way
oh,
that
thank you.
I'm very excited to have this conversation and share it.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
excited to be a part of the conversation as well. I've enjoyed our dinner and offline conversations, and so I've been looking forward to this as well. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah. So you're a doctor and you're dual board certified in psychiatry and as an addiction medicine specialist as
That is
well,
correct.
which
Yes.
is a really interesting combination.
Yes.
And let's dig in. But
Okay.
before we get to the problems and solutions and all of that stuff, I want to really find out a little bit more about who is Steve.
Okay.
What made you so motivated to enter this field and dedicate your career to these topics?
Yes, that's a great question. And I think, like many, there were personal reasons and life experiences that formed the trajectory of my life and my career. I am the son of a physician and actually of a psychiatrist. So my dad was a psychiatrist, and I grew up with that from my earliest years. Um, but when I decided that I was going to pursue medical school and medicine, I wasn't at all thinking about psychiatry. I knew
Hmm.
nothing at that point about addiction.
Interesting.
I really kind of thought I was more going to be going in the direction of emergency medicine.
Oh, interesting. You're
And
looking for something high octane, or
Yes,
what was
yes,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I really, and as maybe we'll explore, my clinical career has been similar to emergency medicine, but on the psychiatric side. What I
Oh,
really like is engaging with people who are in an acute crisis,
okay.
to meet them where they're at, to look for some rhyme, reason for what they are experiencing and to help them see and make sense of it. And then develop an initial treatment plan and connect them to the resources that exist. And so as I look back on my career, I've, I've kind of practiced in that way.
Hmm.
But it was also in medical school that I started to experience and struggle with my own depression and anxiety. I come from a family with a lot of depression and anxiety, and so that too I had grown up with and observed. And in the 4 years of medical school, I was always a good student, so that was never the issue. But I wasn't seeing a care model that made sense
Hmm.
for what I had experienced in my life
Yeah.
and what my family members did.
Hmm.
And so then that led to a bit of a existential crisis.
Hmm.
And I completed medical school, but rather than going directly to residency, I stayed with Loyola University, where I'd done my medical school, and did a neuroscience fellowship.
Huh.
Um, and at the start of that, really had full intentions of pursuing a PhD. In the course of 3 years of research, I had the opportunity to work with individuals who had depression, anxiety, PTSD, but on the research side. And then my research also was the beginning of working with and experiencing individuals who were suffering from substance use disorders or addiction.
Hmm.
And, not to get all spiritual or otherworldly, but through my 3 years of research, I really had a calling back into clinical medicine. Which initially I kind of went kicking and screaming because I'm like, hey, I kind of like this research. It's controlled, it's predictable.
Mhm.
But I was called back into clinical work. Went back and did psychiatric residency. That's how I met Robert, Dr. McCarran.
Mhm.
He was one of the interns when I was chief resident. And it was in my final year of residency in psychiatry in Chicago at Rush Medical Center that I came into contact with two physicians who would become my mentors. My dad was always a father mentor figure, but Dr. Dan Ingris and Dr. Paul Feldman were two physicians who were living in recovery from addiction
Mhm.
and were treating individuals with addiction. And once I saw their approach, it didn't make sense to me just in terms of the treatment of addiction. I was starting to see something that made sense for depression and anxiety, for chronic conditions that needed
Mhm.
a holistic, human, caring, compassionate approach.
Mhm.
And that changed the entire trajectory of my life. I did more clinical rotations at the end of my residency with their treatment program. And ever since that, I'm now in my 25th or 26th year in this field.
Wow. So
Yeah.
it's been quite a journey, and I want to kind of
Yeah,
back up just a little bit more and
sure.
kind of pull some threads
Y-
out that
Pull,
that
pull
I heard
away,
because
pull away.
it what I'm hearing is that you were questioning
Hmm.
what was going on, and I think a lot of students, you know, you're a student, so you're
Yeah,
going to learn, you're going to take what's given to you.
that's right.
But there was something there that was making you question. It was your personal experience with anxiety and depression, and you mentioned existential
Yeah,
crisis, which is
absolutely.
a a big thing to reference. So it
Yes,
looked like you had this piece, and then you changed course, and then you had another piece where you had a spiritual calling, and you
yeah,
changed course again.
that's right.
So can you talk a little bit more about how those personal pieces fit into that decision making that then led you to an answer?
Yes. You know, when I'm faced with a struggle or a crisis, how I deal with that is I go into hyper learner mode.
Okay.
So you know, it's not by any coincidence that I have gravitated to academia, to teaching, because I genuinely am a lifelong learner.
Mhm.
And so the time away from medical school and residency was to better understand what was happening in the brain when individuals are struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD. And fortunately, the lab that I was inserted into, we were looking at veterans who were also struggling with substance use disorder.
Yeah,
And so
interesting.
I first came to doing the work that I do from kind of a scientific understanding.
Mhm.
But those 3 years of research were also exploratory years on a personal level in terms of what does my spirituality mean. I was married at the time, and fortunately, my wife was on a similar journey, and so the two of us, and we share the propensity towards learning, and so
Mhm.
then we were also reading all spiritual literature
Mhm.
across the gamut.
Mhm.
We call ourselves spiritual mutts because we just have gathered whatever we could
Hmm.
read and learn.
So you're
And so,
seekers.
very much so,
Yeah.
very, very, very much so.
Yeah.
And so I was seeking knowledge and understanding from the science and about this field that I was wrestling with. Am I going to be a clinician? Am I going to be an academician? Am I going to blend the two? And I was was seeking, what was that higher purpose, and what
Mhm.
was the higher power that was meaning something in my life, and
Yeah.
how would I be walking a spiritual journey. Um, and then it came together with meeting Dr. Angris and Dr. Feldman, because part of their holistic care model, they were very talented physicians. Dr. Ingris, addiction psychiatrist, Dr. Feldman, family medicine, addiction medicine. But they also, as a part of the clinical work that they did look at the spiritual part of
Mm.
humanity.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
in my earliest formative years, we talk about the biopsychosocial spiritual model. We were living it. I mean, that was in fact their model, and so it was very formative to me, and it brought those two seeking
Mhm.
journeys of my personal together.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
That's really fascinating.
yeah,
And so important, and part of this whole series that I keep seeing bubbling up is how we try to separate things
yeah,
and deal with them
right.
separately, and we
Oh yeah,
really need to integrate. And now you're bringing in the spiritual piece,
yeah,
which I can completely relate to, as it's been a big part of my own healing journey as well. But there's that language, there's like the spiritual seeker, and then
yeah,
there's the academician,
yeah. That's right.
the learner,
That's
the
right.
student. It's like, wait a minute, you can
Yes.
actually be doing both at one time.
Absolutely, which is, I mean, I appreciate you picking up on that thread. That I think is also a golden thread
Mhm.
of my life and my career. I find myself continuously seeking and being brought into initiatives, projects, places of work that are trying to do the integration.
Mhm.
That two things that look like they don't relate or are separate and siloed, I always am attracted to initiatives or people, places, things that are trying to do that integration. And I've always seen the dots that connect
Mhm.
more than the dots that separate.
Mhm.
And that really defines my professional career for sure.
So was that like, if we were to take that research piece and you
Yeah.
decided to become a clinician,
Yes.
what was the Cliff Notes version, or the
Yeah.
the realization, or the one thing that said, okay, now I'm making that step?
Back into the clinical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Genuinely, I mean, it was a actual audible call
Wow.
back into clinical. I don't share that often because it kind of sounds a little out there in some circles, but it was, and it's the only audible call that I've had. Audible. I
Yeah.
certainly listen to, and I live my life trying to quiet down to hear that quiet, soft voice. But this one was while I was studying for oral exams along the PhD route, in the library at a VA, and I clearly, as if someone was sitting next to me, heard a voice that said, "I need you back in clinical work." And I get goosebumps when I share
Yeah, I got
that story.
goosebumps.
And I was not a happy camper.
Oh my
No,
gosh.
no. I liked
That's what it took though,
the
like,
little,
yeah.
yeah, no, I
Clear instructions.
yeah, yeah, I tend to be strong-willed and stubborn,
Yeah.
and it never works out. Like anytime I'm in control, it's not a good scene.
Mhm.
And the times that I really have surrendered and let go and listened to where I'm being led, that those are times of life that go better. And certainly that was the right time and the right decision to go back into the clinical work. And for then the next 20 years, I was frontline, extremely busy clinical psychiatrist and addiction medicine physician. It's only been in the later years now that I'm doing more work on systems
Mhm.
development, consulting, and then training.
And so would you
So
say that you made the right decision?
I say that I followed the right decision. I
Yeah,
didn't
okay.
make the decision.
Okay, you
Yeah, I
followed,
followed
you
the
feel
right
that
decision.
you're
Yeah,
living your path.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that must give some energy.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Because you're an
absolutely.
energetic person.
I am an energetic person. I pretty much will show my passions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a good poker player.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let's dig in a little bit to the people that you serve.
sure.
And
Yeah.
what are the main challenges that you see out there that people are facing?
Yeah, so let me back up just a moment because it carries that same thread.
Yeah, okay.
In terms of that, my career's been episodic, and there's been twists and turns. So when I left Chicago, I ultimately landed in Minnesota and had a long clinical and administrative career with the Hazel and Betty Ford Foundation, the main campus being in central Minnesota. Um, I was there from 2005 to 2023 full
Oh,
time.
wow. A long time.
Yeah, most of that again, seeing thousands of people at residential level and intensive outpatient levels of care as a psychiatrist and addiction medicine physician. Had the honor and privilege of being part of a team that brought evidence-based medications for substance use disorder into that continuum of care. And with that shift in treatment, it opened up doors where people started to call us and say, we also would like to have more integration of treatment with substance use disorder and the medications that can treat
Mm-hmm.
substance use disorder, but we don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And with those phone calls, a training and consultative division was started, and I became the medical director of that group. And that led to several years of being outside of Minnesota with different health systems, FQHCs, training my colleagues on integrated care models. With that work, I became more and more aware of the fact that although I had had a wonderful clinical career for many, many years, I worked in health systems that required the people who were needing the care to navigate extremely disjointed and confusing
Mm-hmm.
health systems
Yes.
to get to me.
Yeah.
Like I was essentially, if you will, hidden away. And those who had the privilege or the assistance
Yeah,
to
you did
get
know.
to me
Mm-hmm.
got to see me. But I was doing nothing to reach out to those who were suffering from substance use disorder and mental health illnesses. And so in 2023, in part influenced by the death by suicide of one of my closest friends,
Oh,
which came out of the blue.
wow.
It was another one of those moments in my life to take stock in what am I doing and where am I putting my energies and my passions.
Yeah.
And that led to a pivot. And now to answer your question, my clinical work and administrative work is as the chief medical officer for a small startup company in Minnesota called YourPath. And
Oh.
our mission is severalfold. From a clinical perspective, we're wanting to reach out and connect with the people wherever they are,
Hmm.
and turn this dynamic 180 degrees. And rather than the treatment providers waiting for people to get to them, we go and
Wow.
do outreach to get to them.
Hmm.
That's linked to a technology component of the company, which has developed a platform that runs on any phone, tablet, or computer that allows for secure, HIPAA compliant texting and video conferencing. And what that enables us to do is have outreach workers and certified peer support specialists embedded in emergency departments, primary
Wow.
care, jails, county jails, so that if someone is getting ready to have reentry, which is one of the most dangerous
Yeah.
times
Hmm.
in regards to overdose. And then, unfortunately, in the urban settings of the Twin Cities of Minnesota, we have a sizable homeless population. And so we have our technology in the hands of street outreach workers in the
Wow.
encampments so that we can get to them. And then the goal is rapidly assess them, have connection to clinicians to do addiction assessments and referral to treatment, as well as our medical and psychiatric professionals who can do the initial evaluation and then stabilization. And then once we have a degree of stabilization through that technology and telehealth, we then make the referrals to community-based providers so that they're getting the care at in the communities and at home where they are.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
that's what we are doing.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
It's been an incredible ride. I've only ever worked in large health systems
Yeah.
that are pretty, baked in.
Yeah.
This has been a wild ride since end of February, early March of 2023,
Yeah.
with a startup,
Mhm.
and the changes and the detours and such. But it's also really exciting, and it fulfills that core mission of mine of looking at how do we break down silos, how do we connect people, and how do we care for those who have historically not
Mhm.
received care? Our health system in this field has been built to essentially take care of 10 to 15%
Oh my
of
gosh.
those who are struggling.
Yeah.
And so that leaves vast people. I
Yeah.
mean, these are human individuals
Yeah.
with lives and families and loved ones. And we need to do differently and we need to do better. And the ultimate goal that we're all trying to achieve at YourPath is that, again, through the human interface of this technology, it also connects not just us to the patient, but also with the patient in the center, that patient with a network of care.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
that's our ultimate goal that we're
Mhm.
trying to create. We say the technology is there to empower recovery-oriented systems of care that surround and hold people in the communities in which they live with the care that they need.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
That's incredible. Incredible
that's
work. Yeah.
yeah, it,
And you're
it is
talking about people that are really facing some of the most difficult challenges to
absolutely.
begin with,
Ab
you
ab
know.
Absolutely, and I'm talking about individuals and populations who have been historically marginalized and disenfranchised.
Yeah.
So a lot of that 85% that weren't getting access are neighbors who are African American, Native American, Latinx, and those real racial disparities exist.
Mhm.
And since 90+% of the care that we provide is through Minnesota Medicaid, we're really able to reach out and help people to get onto Medicaid, and then help to narrow the gaps in terms of access to
Yeah.
evidence-based treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean it's hard for someone to even get to that, to even decide
Yeah.
to make a step.
Absolutely. And when that decision has been made, if we don't respond in that moment, that often is a fleeting moment in open door, because in addiction, one of the things that happens is that the brain signals are communicating that really the most important thing in that moment for survival and well-being is to use.
Mhm.
That's what's been encoded and laid down as memory. And so in that moment where the person is able to see with a bit more clarity, I need to get help. I need to address this. If we're not there to pick them up in that moment, we might lose that moment. And
Yeah.
that's the idea of don't wait.
Mhm.
Be there. One of my sons. We've talked, and I've got twin boys, and one of them is going into psychology, and the other one just started medical school. But before medical school, Mark was working with a street outreach program, and he had and his team members had in their hands the cellular enabled iPad. And
Mm.
when they were in the encampment and sitting and helping to get people housing and food and clothing and clean needles, they were also offering access to an assessment or a medical evaluation. And in that moment, some of the individuals took us up on that, and we
Yeah.
were able to get them connected, not just with the housing, but the housing and the treatment. And that's really what we're about.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've heard too that sometimes I think it was like 7 or 8 times you might need to contact someone
Yeah.
before they will say, "Yes, I will go to treatment."
Sure.
You know, you've
Yeah.
got to build a rapport
Yeah.
too.
And trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We because of the both societal stigma and the judgment that often exists within our healthcare system for individuals with substance use disorder and mental health. Those individuals have often felt judged and
Yeah,
stigmatized
because they have been.
because they have been,
Yeah.
exactly. And for many who have fairly extensive trauma histories, that activates their trauma response. So
Mhm.
part of the
Mhm.
continued having to reach back out and reach back out and reach back out is also to establish that level of trust that,
Mhm.
yes, I know that you've been hurt. I
Mhm.
know that you've been hurt. And I'm here, and I'm going to keep coming back, and I'm going to be here. And when you feel as though it's safe to engage, I will be here.
Mhm.
And then, as humans, we do the best that we can to show up in the way that the person needs us to show up,
Yeah.
knowing that we're all
You're gonna make
imperfect, and
mistakes.
we
Yeah,
fall short.
sure. Yeah.
So, but then acknowledging when we do fall short, that's
Mhm.
one of the most potent things that I have found in my clinical work is
Mhm.
when I have re-traumatized or I've
Mhm.
hurt someone just simply by my humanness.
Yeah.
I find that if I acknowledge that
Yeah.
in as real time as possible, that builds on the trust
Yeah, yeah, it
significantly.
does. Yeah,
So,
and it also, I think, plants that seed too of like,
yeah,
okay, people make mistakes and
yeah,
like maybe it's not as black and white as
that's
we
right.
make it out to be,
Absolutely. I
and that
agree.
kind of is part of the healing journey.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's really interesting that you have this, some research experience
Yeah.
with the actual brain
Hmm.
itself
Yes.
and how that feeds into your understanding of why the stigma
Yes.
is incorrect. Can
Hmm.
you talk about that just a little bit
I
in
can.
layman's
Yes,
terms?
no, no, absolutely. Interestingly, just taught on that this morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where a lot of the stigma and judgment with substance use disorder comes is that on a societal level, all humans, we all categorize people, places, things into different buckets. And often, when we're working with individuals and people, we will put people in one bucket and we will exclude them from another bucket. That's the othering.
Mhm.
And how that gets played out as it pertains to substance use disorders are some core biases that we humans have, cause and control. If we think that the person caused the situation that they find themselves in,
Mhm.
we're going to judge them. And
Mhm.
with that judgment comes the marginalization and the stigma. And if we think that there really should be some control, i.e., just say no,
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
use,
Uh-huh.
then we're going to stigmatize. And those are natural processes with human cognition. We
Okay.
all do that to a degree. So, where the brain science can come in is understanding how the parts of the brain that are responsible for choice, for making the decisions, and for having control over certain behaviors, not all of our lives. Because sometimes when I start talking about brain science, people will hear me and say, so what you're saying is that people who have addiction can't make any choices and can't
Mhm.
make decisions. And so then we have to basically, it gets back to incarceration, right?
Mhm.
To be safe as a society, we have to criminalize. And I'm not at all saying that. Not at all. What I am saying is that modern brain science does help us to understand that some of the parts of the brain that help people have choice about the use of these substances, that's disconnected. For some people at high risk of developing addiction, that disconnect occurs before they ever pick up a substance.
Interesting.
And then once they have picked up the substance, it further disconnects
Huh.
from that. And so those cause and control biases really are not accurate as you begin to understand the science of addiction.
Yeah.
And you can explain that in ways where you don't need any science background. When I'm talking with patients or family members or doing community ed events, I actually talk about the brain with my hand. And I say that the part of the brain that is drive, motivation, reward is the thumb, and it doesn't have any choice or cognitive thinking. And that part of the brain is wrapped by the outside of the brain, what we call the cortex. And the front part of the brain is there to regulate the thumb and to make decisions. And when people are at high risk of developing an addiction by genetics or epigenetics, their life experiences, early traumas and adversity, sometimes that front part of the brain in regulation of the thumb, the middle part of the brain, is disconnected.
Hmm.
And part of the healing and recovery process is establishing those connections. And that's the fun part of this field,
Yeah.
is because when you have the honor and privilege to watch an individual on their road to healing, wholeness, and recovery, you start to see them have that capacity
Wow.
of choice, of sound decision making around substances, and more control.
Wow.
But at the beginning of that, those expectations miss what the science tells us.
I feel like people
So,
need to know this.
absolutely.
Like,
It's
just generally, it should be general knowledge.
I couldn't agree with you more, and
Yeah.
that's why I cannot say no, and I never say no when asked to provide this information in ways
Yeah.
that are understandable.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I share that helps make sense of this is that frequently we have a bias that drug use and alcohol use is about pleasure. And in
Mhm.
fact, you hear people talk about that we have a pleasure center and that dopamine is the feel
Yeah,
good
people we talk
neurotransmitter
about this.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's not what modern neuroscience has taught us.
Interesting.
The area of the brain that we have called the pleasure center actually is most important for scanning the environment to identify things that are important for our survival and our well being.
Hmm.
Sometimes, when that area of the brain is activated, we have an experience of pleasure. But other times, what we experience is a reduction in pain and suffering,
Interesting.
which is extremely reinforcing. That can be physical pain or psychic emotional pain. And this area of the brain is really important for our sense of connection and attachment. And so when you start to shift and you move from thinking about the pleasure center and that drug use is about hedonistic tone,
Mhm.
and you shift it with the true understanding that neuroscience informs us on, which is it's about survival, then for me, Anyway, I'll just personalize it. That understanding helped me to have another level of empathy and understanding,
Yeah.
because why wouldn't someone be pursuing that which their brain is saying is important to their well-being and survival?
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of then my engagement is to help them see that that's an inaccurate assessment
Yeah.
of what is going on, and help them to come to a place where they see that for themselves,
Right.
and they gain their own self awareness and ability to, again, make choices that lead to health promoting
Yeah.
behaviors. But until we've done that preliminary work, I should not have an expectation
Yeah.
that they are going to, on day one, not be using substances. And when I started in this career 26 years ago, that was the
Yeah.
expectation. You are
Yeah.
now in treatment, and so you will no longer use
Yeah.
substances ever again.
Yeah.
And if you do, you have failed.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so
That's the model. That's the
I'm
current model.
calling the individual a failure, their family is calling them a failure, society is calling them a failure, and guess what they're calling themselves? A failure.
Yeah. And that's not
That's
going to help.
not great for shame and
That's
a
not going to help.
sense of self-loathing.
Yeah.
And we can, again, that thread of bringing things together, we can bring that human compassion and love together with the science. And when we look at them together, that's where we see where the healing arts come
And
for these
that's what I was
individuals.
just gonna say
Yeah,
though too, because if we understand the brain functioning in a certain way to provide you, the drugs would give
yeah,
you a certain uh, feeling in
yeah,
the brain,
right.
then we can also say, well, what else will give that feeling and more that
That's
is
right.
not the drug? You mentioned connection
Yes. Oh,
and
absolutely.
attachment
Yep.
and healing those pieces because you can't just take something away from someone that
No,
brings comfort. You have
that's
to
right.
replace it with something.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, so
That's
it sounds
absolutely
like
correct.
the science it is an art, but it
Yeah,
also sounds it's like it's a science too.
definitely. Definitely. Well, in my world,
Uh,
they're part of a whole,
you're
right?
integrating art and
I'm not,
science
yeah,
and
there, yeah,
spirituality
truly.
and
Yeah,
medicine and yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's the human condition, right?
Mhm.
We're not just physical beings and spiritual beings over here. We're us.
Mhm.
And part of healing from in really healing from any chronic illness is a part of becoming more that whole person
Mhm.
that you were to be,
Let me
however we
ask you this
define this.
question
Yes.
because I think a lot of people would like to hear this answer because
Yeah.
I think there are many people that feel so down
Yeah.
about where they're at or where their loved one is at that they
Yes.
feel that it's hopeless. Like, do
Yes.
you feel
Yes.
from a scientific
Yep.
perspective, is it possible for anyone to heal?
Yeah. So that is hard for me to answer as emphatically as I want to.
Okay.
I will answer this though in my concise answer. There is hope
Okay.
for everyone who is seeking healing, to be connected to evidence-based care that can lead them to a place of healing. There is hope for everyone there. Where I paused is that I'm also coming to understand that there are limitations
Mhm.
at this time to science and medicine.
Yeah.
In the same way that we see limitations when we think about, does everyone who have cancer have hope to have healing?
Mhm.
Everyone has hope, and we continue to make improvements and strides in new therapies and new treatments and personalized medicine, right?
Mhm.
In the same way that we do that for oncology, we're now in the process, very early stages, of doing that for addiction. But there is a limit, and I'm also coming to terms with, how do I continue to work with individuals and their families when the current state is that their addiction is likely terminal. And how do we then give them the opportunity to live the best time of their life
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
and not pull away the hope?
Yeah.
And that's where we can learn a lot from our oncology colleagues and palliative care and hospice. I love the skills and the talents and the ways that they engage with patients and
Yeah.
families. So that's where my hesitancy was. My answer in terms of if someone is sitting there and thinking that there's no hope or their loved one has no hope, to them, my direct response is yes, there is.
Yeah.
But it starts with getting connected to individuals who are going to work with you, the individual and the family, and continue to work with you longitudinally for the long haul to get to a place of that healing and wholeness.
Yeah.
That's how I would answer that part of the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and part of what the work you're doing is,
Yeah.
I mean, we've made great strides,
Yes.
and
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
still so much more to do.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
So,
Yes.
how could somebody who may be watching this is like really interested in this? How can
Yeah.
they get a hold of you or learn more about the organization that you're working with?
Yes. Well, they can get a hold of us at YourPath through our website. It's YourPath, all one word, .org.
Great.
We're
Yeah.
currently in Minnesota and a little bit in Kentucky.
Hmm.
But I also would encourage people to reach out to the resources that are in their communities, as well as organizations like SAMHSA and NAMI and NIDA. All of those organizations have wonderful resources, both for the individual and for their families. So first and foremost, reach out. And the other thing that I would share is both for the individual who is doubting and struggling with a lack of hope, you are worth seeking and getting care.
Mm.
And to the family, you as a family are worth and capable of getting care. And your loved one
Hmm.
is worth you continuing to support and connect with care.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up too, that like that the supporters and the family
Yeah.
members should also be supported
Absolutely.
because it's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Family members who are dealing with a loved one with substance use disorder or a mental health illness often are really struggling with what does that mean and how does that affect the whole
Yeah.
family. And getting their own support is really important. I frequently, I said this to myself, my own family members, and other families. We need to be taking care of ourselves and ensuring that
Absolutely.
we're getting what we need
Hmm.
so that we can support our family member.
Absolutely.
That being a good family member does not mean that we're getting sicker and sicker, right? But I also want to speak to that family that is struggling with a loved one who has a substance use disorder. You are not enabling them if
Okay.
you continue to keep the doors open in communication.
I love that.
That's not
Yeah.
enabling, that's loving.
Yes.
You need to ensure your own safety and
Yes.
your health and well-being. So again, don't be martyring yourself as well.
Hmm.
Healthy boundaries are important, but we've often, at the expense of that healthy boundary, we've said that we're enabling, and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have to cut off the other individual. We have to do what we need to do to be healthy. But what I would offer to the family members is in doing that, try to continue to communicate that you are there and you love them,
Hmm.
even if you can't be with them while they are active in their illness.
Yeah.
That keeps the doors open, and that is not enabling.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that because we could go down the rabbit hole
Yeah,
on
I
that
know.
one, but
I know. Sure.
oh my
sure.
goodness.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're
This is
welcome. Thank you.
always an illuminating
Oh,
conversation.
I love talking with you.